Welcome to the debate. Today we're diving into the really extreme end of performance with the BYD Yangwang U9X. It's an electric hypercar packing something like 3,000 horsepower, and it set this top speed record, 496 kilometers per hour.
Right.
So the big question for us today is, why that number? Why 496? Especially when calculations suggest a theoretical maximum way up at 574 kilometers an h. Was hitting 496 a technical wall, or was it more about marketing strategy? I'm going to argue it was purely strategic.
Okay. I see it differently. While that power figure is frankly mind-boggling, I think the announced limit, 496, it's primarily down to engineering reality. The actual physical limits of the drivetrain, and crucially, safety considerations at those kinds of speeds.
Okay, I get the physics challenge, I really do. But the evidence, for me, points to BYD playing a game here. If you look at the record run footage, the car is still accelerating hard, well past the point where, say, the Bugatti Chiron was already, really fighting for every last kilometer h to reach its 490. The U9X didn't seem to be struggling in the same way. Which tells me it hadn't hit some absolute technical ceiling. I think BYD is deliberately holding back. They set the record at 496, just under that magic 500 mark. Why? To keep the footage of them actually breaking 500 in their back pocket. Ready to release it later, grab headlines again, maybe when a rival gets close. So the limit feels flexible, not technical.
Well, that brings us right back to the hardware, doesn't it? That theoretical 574 kilometers per hour, it's calculated in a vacuum, sort of. It doesn't account for the motor's rotational speed limit. The U9X, it uses a single speed reduction gear, right? And those electric motors, they probably top out around maybe 30,000 RPM. That's your mechanical red line.
Okay.
And if you do the math with the final drive ratio, that physically limits the top speed to somewhere much closer to, say, 510, maybe 515 kilometers per hour. So that 574 figure, it's optimistic, let's say. Very much a dream. And that's before we even talk about tires. Finding tires truly safe for sustained speeds near 574 for testing, that's a massive challenge in itself.
But look at the power versus speed gain. This is key for my argument. Bugatti gets to 490 kilometers per hour with 1,600 horsepower, okay? The U9X throws almost double the power at the problem, 3,000 horsepower, and finds, 6 kilometers per hour more? That disparity screams strategy to me, not physics.
See, I think that actually proves my point. It shows just how dominant aerodynamic drag becomes. It increases, roughly with the cube of velocity. So doubling the power yields only tiny gains at the very top end because you're just ramming into an aerodynamic wall. That huge power increase giving such marginal speed gain, that confirms the technical limits are exponential and very, very real. And let's talk testing integrity for a second. Using those GT tires, a less known brand compared to, say, Michelin, who Bugatti worked with, that smells like they were already limiting the test due to safety concerns. They probably never intended to push anywhere near 574.
All right, I'll concede the tires are, let's say, interesting. And yes, aero drag is huge. But what about the Nürburgring run? We have telemetry from that. On the main Daten-Zimmerhöhe straight, the car visibly, deliberately cuts power. It refused to go past 350 kilometers per hour. Now, if this car is capable of nearly 500, why would you electronically limit it on the fastest part of the track during a test? Unless you're sandbagging, unless you're preserving a margin for later. That doesn't feel like hitting a technical wall. And this 30,000 RPM limit you keep mentioning. Performance systems like this often have firmware overrides, temporary modes for exactly these kinds of record runs. It might not be the absolute hard stop you suggest.
I'm sorry, I just don't buy that engineering isn't the primary driver here. The Nürburgring thing, pulling power back could easily be a safety call. You've got a heavy car, 2.5 tons, probably 2,600 kilos with the driver.
It is heavy, yeah.
On notoriously bumpy asphalt, likely with tires already pushed hard from the rest of the lap. Listing seems prudent, not strategic. And more fundamentally, that 30,000 RPM barrier, that's likely about the physical integrity of the rotor itself, not just software. You can't just firmware hack your way past potential mechanical failure at those speeds. So the absolute physical maximum is probably nearer that 510 mark I mentioned. Choosing to announce 496? Yeah, okay, that's marketing near the actual limit. But the limit itself is real.
For me, the combination of factors, the sustained acceleration we saw, that odd power reduction during testing, and landing just shy of the big 500, it points overwhelmingly towards a carefully managed, strategic release. They're playing the long game for media attention.
And for me, the engineering truth that motor RPM limit, the sheer difficulty and danger of developing tires for anything near 574 kilometers per hour, these have to be the main constraints on a 3,000 horsepower beast like this. Strategy exists, sure, but only within the boundaries set by physics.
So it seems what we're seeing here is a fascinating glimpse into the world of extreme EVs, where the final number, that top speed figure, it's this complex mix. It's engineering pushing boundaries, definitely, but also maybe, just maybe, commercial calculation nudging right up against that absolute physical limit.
Yeah, it definitely blurs the lines between what's possible mechanically and what's presented publicly. There's clearly more going on than just a simple number.